What does it really cost to live the life of a PGA Tour pro? You see the million-dollar checks and the championship trophies, but maybe the real status symbol isn't on the course. It's 30,000 feet in the air. Now you might think every top golfer has their own G5, but the truth is a whole lot more interesting and at times more dangerous than you could imagine. For every story of champagne and luxury, there's another of logistical nightmares, staggering costs, and even heartbreaking tragedy. In this video, we're pulling back the curtain to reveal who really owns a private jet. From the PGA, LIV, and LPGA tours, we'll explore the shocking costs involved and the surprisingly big-name golfers who are still flying commercial. We'll look at the different models of private flight, from outright ownership to the rise of tour-wide charter services, and even delve into the darkest day in modern golf history. A story that serves as a chilling reminder of the risks that come with this unparalleled luxury. And before we wrap up, we'll also take you behind the curtain of tournament logistics, how private aviation literally makes the PGA Tour possible, and explore the future of golf travel, from sustainability debates to the next wave of aviation innovation. Let's get into it. The image is iconic. A top golfer fresh off a Sunday victory, stepping onto the tarmac and walking up the steps of a sleek private jet. For the world's elite, this isn't just a fantasy, it's practically a necessity. The professional golf schedule is a grueling continent-hopping marathon. A tournament in Florida might end late on a Sunday night, while practice rounds for the next tournament perhaps on the other side of the country in California, or even across the ocean in Scotland, just a couple of days later. In a high-stakes game where millions of dollars are on the line, flying commercial is a professional handicap. The risk of delays, canceled flights, lost clubs, and pure physical and mental exhaustion is a multi-million-dollar gamble most top players aren't willing to take. Arriving rested, avoiding the germs of a packed commercial cabin, and having your meticulously prepared equipment guaranteed to be with you is a competitive advantage that just can't be overstated. Owning a jet outright is rarer than you think. The staggering cost and logistical nightmares mean that for many, owning a jet is just one more thing to worry about. Instead, the world of pro golf aviation is dominated by two other models: fractional ownership and chartering. Companies like NetJets have become a massive part of the golf world, acting as the official private jet provider of the PGA Tour. They extended their partnership with the Tour through 2028, a relationship that began back in 2014. NetJets sponsors over 50 professional golfers, including some of the biggest names in the sport, giving them access to a huge fleet of aircraft without the headache of full ownership. Think of it like a timeshare for the ultra-rich. Players buy a slice of a jet, which gets them a certain number of flight hours per year. This model is the secret that keeps the tour moving. A complex web of ownership, sponsorships, and on-demand luxury that gives dozens of players the ability to stay at the top of their game. While many pros go for the smarter, more flexible travel, there's still an exclusive club of golfers who hold the keys to their own kingdoms in the sky. It all started with the original king, Arnold Palmer. Palmer, who was famously afraid of flying, decided to conquer his fear by learning to fly himself in 1955. He started with a Cessna 172 and eventually amassed nearly 20,000 hours of flight time. That's equivalent to the hours of an entire career as a pilot for a major airline. Over his career, he owned or leased more than 10 different aircraft, moving from an Aero Commander 500 in 1961 to a Rockwell Jet Commander in 1966, and eventually a series of Cessna Citation jets. His final jet was a Citation X, known for the world's fastest business jet, which he even had a hand in designing. For Palmer, flying wasn't just a convenience, it was a passion and a vital business tool, allowing him to build a global brand. He even set a round-the-world speed record in a Learjet 36 in 1976, circling the globe in just 58 hours. The airport in his hometown of Latrobe, Pennsylvania, is now fittingly named Arnold Palmer Regional Airport in his honor. Following in Arnold Palmer's footsteps is the man who defines modern golf royalty, Tiger Woods. It's no surprise that the 15-time major owns his own aircraft. Tiger flies in a stunning Gulfstream G550, which he reportedly bought for over $53 million. Registered with the tail number N517TW, the jet is his office in the sky. With a range of nearly 8,000 miles, it can fly non-stop from US to Asia, carrying up to 19 passengers. Inside, it's kitted out with a bedroom, a walk-in closet, multiple living areas, and satellite communications, letting him run his TGR Ventures empire from anywhere in the world. This isn't just a plane, it's a tool that's fueled his global dominance for years, allowing him to arrive at tournaments well-rested and prepared. Next on the list is Phil Mickelson. His father was a naval aviator, and Phil himself even earned his pilot's license. For years, he was a proud member of the Owners Club, flying a Gulfstream 5, valued at around $40 million. But in a move that shows just how tricky ownership can be, Mickelson sold his jet. He explained that the logistics, like having to book a hangar months in advance for a ski trip just so the plane wouldn't freeze, became a massive expense and hassle. While rumors swirled that the sale was related to gambling debts, Mickelson maintained it was a practical decision. Now he prefers to charter jets, enjoying the freedom of calling a service like VistaJet just hours in advance. And you can't talk about golfers and jets without mentioning the Shark, Greg Norman. His fascination with planes started as a teen when he dreamed of being an Air Force pilot in Australia. Over his career, he's reportedly owned a staggering 7 different jets, including a Gulfstream 5 and a G550. His first was a Lockheed Jetstar, one of the earliest private jet models ever made, which he bought around 1988 for $1 million. For Norman, whose business empire spans everything from course design to real estate, private aviation isn't a luxury, it's a vital part of his global brand. Other members of the Owners Club include Jack the Golden Bear Nicholas, who has owned a variety of jets and learned to fly them himself, citing a Gulfstream 3 as his all-time favorite. South African Ernie Els also owns a Gulfstream 6, and tales from his jet are legendary in the golf world. One infamous story involved a long-haul flight from Japan where tensions boiled over between Els and fellow pro Steve Marino, turning the back of the plane into a testosterone-fueled love fest after a few too many drinks.
Play on the PGA Tour, I'm like 3 spots ahead of you on the money list, bud. And he's like, oh,
I didn't know that part was true. That's so good.
he loved that. He loved that. So, you know, we had a good time and drank some beers. He invited me on his plane. We figured out we're both playing in Japan and coming back to Jupiter. So he offered me a ride back.
Now we move from the owners to the savviest travelers on tour. These are the players who get all the perks of private flight without the billion-dollar-sized headache of actually managing an aircraft. Leading the pack is Rory McIlroy. For a while, Rory owned a Bombardier Challenger 605, but he later reportedly sold it, citing a massive sense of guilt over his carbon footprint after taking a solo flight home from a tournament in China. Now he flies in a top-of-the-line Gulfstream G650ER. He reportedly bought a pre-owned 2022 model, but this is still one of the most sought-after business jets in the world. With a range of over 8,600 miles and multiple speed records, it can seat up to 16 passengers, letting him travel with his family and team in total comfort. A new model could have cost nearly $78 million before production ceased, so even a second-hand purchase represents a massive investment. Then there's Dustin Johnson. With his globe-trotting schedule, especially after joining the LIV Golf Tour, you'd think he has his own wings. Technically, he doesn't. Instead, he and his 4 Aces teammates, Patrick Reed, Pat Perez, and Harold Varner III, have an exclusive global partnership with Magellan Jets. This deal gives them on-demand access to a whole fleet of aircraft. Johnson called the partnership a perfect fit because it gives his family and team the comfort and safety they need without him dealing with logistics. His wife, Paulina Gretzky, often shares glimpses of their lavish travel on social media, showing off everything from Masters-themed desserts to the ridiculously luxurious interiors that come with this kind of service. This brings us to one of the most fascinating modern aspects of golf travel. This friendly jab between PGA and LPGA affiliated players also highlights a closing gap. For a long time, the travel disparity between the men's and women's tours was vast, but that's starting to change. While wholesale private jet ownership is still exceptionally rare on the LPGA Tour, new tournaments are stepping up. At a recent Black Desert Championship in Utah, the tournament sponsor provided free charter flights on SkyWest jets for 95 players and a guest from the previous week's event in Houston. For many of the players, it was the first time they'd ever flown on a charter. They were also given free lodging at the resort for a week, perks that are invaluable for players managing their own budgets. Stars like Nelly Korda and Michelle Wie West have also been utilizing private jet services, indicating a growing trend as the LPGA Tour's profile and purses continue to rise. While private jets are often framed as luxuries in professional golf, they're just as much about logistics as they are about status. The PGA Tour is a logistical monster. Each week, hundreds of players, caddies, coaches, physiotherapists, equipment reps, and broadcast crews all have to converge on the next course, often within 48 to 72 hours of the previous tournament wrapping up. Without private aviation, the entire machine would grind to a halt. For example, a Sunday finish of the Players' Championship in Florida can roll straight into a Monday practice round at a World Golf Championship in Mexico. And in weather delays, which often push tournaments into Monday finishes, and suddenly commercial travel just isn't fast enough. Equipment is another major factor. A top player doesn't just travel with one bag of clubs. They often have backups, prototypes, training devices, and sponsor gear, sometimes filling an entire cargo hold. Moving this amount of equipment reliably is only possible through chartered or private flights. Even the caddies benefit. They can finish a grueling week, pack up, and still make it to the next stop without missing critical prep days. Behind the scenes, tournament directors even coordinate shared charters when schedules are especially tight, essentially running their own league airlines to keep the show on the road. Private jets aren't just symbols of luxury, they're the hidden infrastructure that makes a global sport like golf run smoothly. With all this talk of Gulfstreams and Bombardiers, you'd be forgiven for thinking that every player with a tour card has a jet waiting for them. But here's the most surprising truth. Plenty of successful, big-name golfers are still flying commercial. For players still making a name for themselves, or even for those who are just a bit more frugal, the cost of private travel is just too steep. Flying first class or even basic economy is the reality for a huge chunk of tour pros. Even some of the game's biggest stars have been known to fly with the rest of us. For a time, Rory McIlroy was vocal about his concerns over his carbon footprint and was paying around $150,000 a year to offset it before he returned to private flying. It shows the decision isn't always automatic. Perhaps the most interesting example is Jordan Spieth. Despite his partnership with NetJets, he also invested in a different kind of vehicle for life on the road, a massive RV. He said he bought it to have a home on the road for his wife and son, giving them a sense of normalcy in the chaos of the tour. It's a grounding choice that reminds us that even for the world's best, life on tour demands creative solutions. But the convenience and luxury of private aviation come with inherent risks, a truth that struck the golf world with unimaginable force on October 25th, 1999. That morning, reigning U.S. Open champion Payne Stewart, one of the most charismatic and beloved figures in the game, boarded a chartered Learjet 35 in Orlando, Florida. He was scheduled to fly to Dallas for the Tour Championship. Stewart, his friends Robert Fraley and Van Arden, golf course architect Bruce Borland were the four passengers along with two pilots. Just 14 minutes after takeoff, after acknowledging a clearance to climb to 39,000 feet, air traffic controllers lost all contact with the jet. The plane N47BA continued to climb, veering wildly off its approved flight path. For almost 4 hours, the jet flew silently across the American heartland, a ghost plane cruising at altitudes approaching 50,000 feet. The U.S. Air Force sent in a F-116 fighter jet to intercept. The fighter pilots got close enough to see the aircraft, but could not see anyone moving inside. The windows were covered in a thick layer of frost, a chilling sign of a massive loss of cabin pressure and oxygen. The NTSB later determined that the flight crew and passengers were likely incapacitated within minutes of the depressurization event, dying from hypoxia, a lack of oxygen. The plane flew on autopilot for almost 1,500 miles until it finally ran out of fuel and entered a terrifying spiral, crashing into a field in rural South Dakota at nearly supersonic speed. The impact left a crater 42 feet long and 8 feet deep. There were no survivors. The tragedy of Payne Stewart serves as the darkest reminder that while private jets represent the pinnacle of speed and convenience, the sky can be an unforgiving place. So what does it actually cost to fly like a pro? The numbers are genuinely wild and show exactly why full ownership is only for a tiny handful of players. Let's start with buying a jet outright, like Tiger's Gulfstream G550. While the model is no longer in production, a pre-owned G550 can still cost between $13 million and $23 million, depending on its age and condition. A brand new list price was originally around $54 million, but the sticker price is just the beginning. The real financial drain is the annual operating cost. Based on flying 400 hours a year, the total annual budget to operate a G550 can be around $3.4 million. This is broken into two categories: fixed costs and variable costs. The fixed costs alone can run over $1.3 million per year. That includes things like hangar fees at a major private airport, which can be up to $200,000 a year, massive insurance premiums ranging from $200,000 to $600,000 a year, and salaries and recurrent training for a full-time flight crew, which can easily top $300K annually for a captain and first officer. And that's before you've even left the ground. Variable costs, fuel maintenance, landing fees, catering stack on quickly. Fuel alone can run between $1,000 to $1,500 per hour, meaning a transcontinental trip might burn $40K in jet fuel. Fractional ownership, like with NetJets, offers a more manageable solution. A 1/16th share giving you 50 flight hours per year starts at around $550K upfront, plus about $12,000 in monthly management fees and $2,000 per flight hour. So while it's far cheaper than owning a jet, it's still the price of a luxury house just for the privilege of time sharing. For players who aren't winning majors, chartering offers flexibility. Our short domestic hop in a mid-sized jet might cost $20,000 one way. International flights can easily top $100,000. To put this in context, an early round exit from a tournament might mean a player earns less than their travel expenses for the week. It's one of the biggest financial pressures on professional golfers. As the sport evolves, one of the biggest questions facing golf is what's the future of private travel? Players like Rory McIlroy have already voiced concerns about their carbon footprint. After all, a single transatlantic trip in a private jet can emit as much carbon dioxide as an average family car does in a year. The aviation industry is responding with innovations like sustainable aviation fuel, which can reduce emissions by up to 80%. Companies like Gulfstream have already tested flights running entirely on SAF. There's also a race to develop electric and hybrid aircraft for shorter regional flights, along with hydrogen fuel cell technology for long haul. Golf as a sport could even become a testing ground for these innovations. With its global reach and wealthy backers, the PGA Tour and LIV Golf could partner with aviation companies to demonstrate greener travel options. Imagine a future where players arrive at Augusta not in roaring Gulfstreams, but in sleek, silent, hydrogen-powered jets. Still private, still fast, but sustainable. The future may also bring more collective solutions. Instead of 50 players each chartering separate flights, league-wide charters using next-gen aircraft could drastically reduce emissions while still offering the same competitive advantage. So what's the real truth about golfers and private jets? It's a story of kings and hustlers, of staggering costs and creative solutions, of champagne luxury and tragic heartbreak. Some players, like Tiger Woods, live at the very peak of the aviation pyramid, with jets worth more than most people will ever earn in a lifetime. Others are pooling rides, chartering flights, or even grinding it out in commercial airports with the rest of us. But no matter the model, ownership, charter, or shared service, one thing is clear. Private aviation is more than just a perk in golf. It's the invisible infrastructure that makes the global tour possible. As the game grows and the world becomes more conscious of sustainability, the private jets of golf's future may look very different from today. But the need to get from point A to point B, fast, safe, and ready to compete, will never change. And so, the next time you see a player hosting a trophy on a Sunday evening, remember this: their biggest victory might not just be on the course. It might be the quiet luxury of stepping onto a jet, shutting the door, and leaving the chaos of travel far below. Tell me what you think in the comments and what jet you would buy. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me produce some great content for you. And hey, make sure you always keep it in the short stuff.